Hello, beautiful friends. This is Gina. Welcome to the Rebookery channel. This is like the third time I filmed this video today. I do not know what is wrong with me, but the lighting has been off. My mouth hasn't been working. I don't know what's going on. So hopefully this will work. I'm going to put 5 new journals in my Etsy shop tomorrow on Tuesday, July 3rd at 7 p.m. Central Time, Kansas City, Missouri, USA. And I want to walk you through what I have in these journals. So I'm going to start off with this one. This is a Homebodies journal. It's a little bit different than the Homebodies I had been doing, and the reason why is because this actually started off as a total disaster. I had made all of the signatures and planned on putting this in a different journal cover. But when I went to do it, something wasn't working right. And so I ended up and scrapped that cover and had to find a new cover. And I had this one just sitting there waiting to be filled. And I put the signatures in and it worked perfectly. So what started off as a disaster turned out to be, this is one of my favorite journals. I just love the feel of this. I love how much room it has. Yeah, it's just a really fun journal. It's very reminiscent of my little journal, although it's not that big. So it has 5 signatures, and on the inside, as with my Homebodies, I like to give you guys the actual craft that the book represents so that you can practice your craft. So you're going to see some needlepoint, you're going to see some handicrafts in here, some cross stitch patterns and things like that. But then I also included a couple new things in this Homebody. So I just want to make sure I'm in frame here. So when you start off, this is an old cross stitch that I found. It actually was in a hoop and then I took it out, so you'll still see the imprint of the hoop, but I just turned this into a little pocket. And then this was the book jacket that the book actually came with. So when you get this, you'll see that there are little wrinkles and stuff on the cover. I don't know why. I've tried sanding it and it won't come off. So at some point this got damaged, but it's kind of corrected itself and it just kind of gives it a little bit of texture and a little bit of character. So this was the book cover, the book jacket, and I turned it into a pocket. And then inside, I pulled in another Homebody craft. And another Homebody craft that I really haven't introduced into my books, the Homebodies books, is cooking, because cooking is a Homebody craft. I know this because I'm a Homebody, and I would rather be home on a Friday night cooking cupcakes or scones or something than to go out, you know, and be with people and stuff like that. I'd rather be at home doing Homebody stuff. So this is a book jacket from a cookbook, and it was kind of in disrepair, so I just kind of did as much to it as I could to kind of keep the integrity. It's got some really messy stitches. It's got some of this tape called strand tape. It's got little fibers in it, and it just kind of adds a different little effect, and some fabric trim, so that just gets tucked in here. This would make a great little small journal, like a little booklet. Some of my favorite scrapbook paper. Wallpaper. Here's a little piece of fabric that you could do some needlework on, and then I put a safety pin with some old yarn. Ledger paper, storybook paper, music paper. I pulled from several different storybooks for this, so you will see like Casper the Ghost. I think there's some Romper Room storybook pages. Do you remember Romper Room? I have some, there's like some fire engine themed storybook pages. There's Casper the Ghost, and this is a piece of wallpaper. So yeah, there's like 3 or 4 different storybook pages that you'll see in here. This is just a little envelope that I stuck a flashcard in. Wallpaper. Some McCall's dress pattern. This is a nice thick envelope because this is made of some thick cardstock, and then I just did some stitching around it. I put a storybook page on the inside, and then this is just a little tag. Another envelope. So there's some of these envelopes, and you'll have, I made these little flashcard like booklet type things and just kind of tucked those in so you could just do a small little journal story on that booklet. And that's just paper clipped in. So this is a piece of cloth that you would do some sort of needle craft, and I stitched around the edge, put a vintage sheet at the top, and just a little pattern tissue. This is a page from a quilt pattern book. So I love just the stark white with the white drawings. It reminds me of like a coloring book. Okay, so you're gonna see lots of pages like this, and that's because I pulled pages from this really awesome book called the Sunset Cookbook. And when I saw this, I didn't even look inside. I knew I had to have it just by the cover. So this is, of course, 1960s or 1970s, copyright 1960. And the illustrations are just to die for. It's a nice thick matte paper. So I used a lot of the pages from that cookbook in here. So I'm just over the moon for those pages. They just, oh, they are just begging to be journaled on. It's a little bag with some more of that strand tape. This is the fire engine storybook that I just turned into a tag. Some Ziggy cross stitch. Look at the end paper on that storybook. It's so pretty. So this is a pocket that I made with a couple different types of wallpaper. I had a bunch of kitty cat greeting cards, some old kitty cat greeting cards. So I turned those into little journaling cards. So you'll see those throughout. Get rid of that. You'll see those throughout this journal. I always laugh at cats. I'm not a cat person. I have a cat, but I'm not a cat person. But I just laugh at cats. Anything that has cats on it, I just laugh. I don't know. Cats just make me laugh. Wallpaper. Look at those illustrations. This is from a craft book, kids craft book around the same time period. More storybook pages. This is a couple of pages about wine from my Sunset Cookbook. This is a little tag. Just goes up in here. Oops, there we go. Okay, so then on the back, this is a piece of cloth that was used for some sort of a needle craft. It was latch hook or not cross stitch, but it would be some sort of a needle craft. I don't really know what it is because I'm not an expert on needle crafts. I don't know hardly anything. But anyway, this is an old piece. You can see that it's yellowed and everything. And so I glued it on here, and then I took some old yarn that came with it, and I just hand stitched the yarn. So here's a blanket stitch, here's a straight stitch. This was just a zigzag stitch. And just to give it a little bit of extra security, because even though it's glued on, I know you'll be pulling on this pocket, and I just kind of wanted it to be extra secure. Plus, I don't know, it was just kind of cool having that hand stitching, and it always makes me feel better to know that it's secured two ways. And then inside, I just put a piece of wallpaper that I folded into like a little booklet and tucked that into this pocket. And then here's what the back looks like. So this is the Homebodies. Like I said, lots and lots of room in this Homebodies, and the way it lays, it's very similar to, it reminds me of my little journal. The next book I have, I actually started this one in April and then just kind of let it sit, and I didn't go back to it for a while. But this was when I was experimenting with different types of journals, and I started getting away from the hard spine and started getting into more of a flexible spine. So this is what I'm calling a flexible spine hardcover journal. And the fabric I used here is from, it's like an old upholstery fabric. I call it Fraulein Maria because it reminds me of The Sound of Music when she used the draperies to make the children's play clothes. To me, this is the drapery fabric that she made the children's play clothes out of. So hand stitched it to the cover, and then this is a Betty Crocker kids party cookbook, and then it's just got lots of messy stitches and scraps and book page tidbits all around. I just love, and again, I just love the way this feels in my hands, and that flexible spine. It gives us some squishiness, and I'm kind of into the squishiness right now. So here's the back side of my hand stitching. This was a vintage sheet and then wallpaper. I pulled some pages. I didn't have pages from this book, so I pulled some pages from a Betty Crocker cookbook. So cookbook pages, scrapbook paper, music paper, ledger paper. Love the photography in this cookbook. So there's these little cookies that'll go around the bottom, and I tried to give you some really good shots of the food. This is wallpaper, and I have not filled the pockets in this book, so I need to do that. Some McCall's dress pattern paper, scrapbook paper pocket. See, like the photography right here. Flocked paper. And so this paper is attached to this paper. So you could do lots of things with it. You could secure this and make it a pocket. You could cut this off. You could glue it together and make it one thick page. You could fold this in or fold this out and make it a pocket. You could fold this and just kind of make it a fold out. There's lots of options that you have. I like in my journals to give you guys like the bones and then let you fill it in with all of your goodness. I don't like to go overboard and decorate it for you, because then I feel like it's not your journal, it's my journal. And so I try to give it to you with as much inspiration and as much foundation to get you going, and then let you put all your finishing touches on it. So 2 pieces of wallpaper here. Lots of security envelopes. Some pretty scrapbook paper. Love that green and that orange. And then that's really bright purple. That's kind of cool together. And then the last signature, a fold out security, locked paper again. And then wallpaper. So this is a piece of, I have some quilt blocks that are some Dresden plates, and they were made from feed sacks from my great step grandma. Yeah, so I included some of those on the edges. So this is my soft spine cookbook. Love, love, love this one. It just feels so good in your hands. Little fabric storybooks. So this one is Pluto, and this one is Where Timothy Lives. They have coordinating fabric. They are just like the little fabric storybooks that I've already done. It's just different pages, different fabrics. So let me walk you through these. So if you remember on my little fabric storybooks, they have a sash from a vintage sheet. They have the cover on the front. They have the back cover. And then it is a tri-fold journal. So it folds out like this. You have a pocket over here, a pocket in the center, and then you'll have a fabric pocket over here with some little piece of wallpaper. So it says 5 signatures. It is wallpaper, the original book pages, ledger paper, scrapbook paper, cardstock, and then it has lots of trims, lots of fabric bits. Sometimes the wallpaper I've turned into pockets. And again, I have not filled these pages or these pockets, so I need to go back and do that, but I'll fill them all with a bunch of good stuff. And I love this one. So this is wallpaper that folds out. So you can have an extra large spread there if you wanted. Lots of Aunt Vincie's linens and napkins. I love using her linens and napkins because, especially the white ones, because it seems to tone down all the color of the papers and everything that I use. So you'll see on the back of the scrapbook paper, I have some stamping. I don't typically do stamping because, again, I want this to be for you. I want it to be blank canvas and then you put your stuff on. But these were some stamps that belonged to my grandfather and grandmother. They owned a donut shop and then they owned a wood shop. So I used their stamps and stuck them on the back of the scrapbook paper. And then I also had some stamps from an old business in downtown Kansas City. And so I stamped some of those on there just to kind of give it some interest. I did use archival ink, so it should not run or smear because it should be permanent. So you're okay to use paint or watercolor or marker or whatever on top of it, and it shouldn't run. But just to give you a little added interest. Okay, so that's the Pluto one, and I love, love, love the Pluto one because I love the brown and the pink. I just think that is an awesome color combination. So Pluto. And then this one is Where Timothy Lives. And I really liked this fabric because by itself, I would maybe turn my nose up at this fabric, but when I paired it with this book, I don't know, it seemed to work. So vintage sheet, again, the same layout, pocket, pocket, pocket with wallpaper, and then basically you're gonna get the exact same as you did in the Pluto book. Because actually I made these two together, so I used the same papers. There was only a couple of papers that I did not use in both of these. So everything should be pretty much the same. So I love the feel of these little fabric storybooks, just the size of them. That the size of those telltale books, so a book that's this size, just the way it feels in your hands, and then when you turn it into a journal, I don't know, it's just something really nice about that size. It's not overwhelming. You can take it with you, definitely, whereas like my little journal, I can't take that with me. It stays here. So if I want to journal on the go, I always have to take a smaller journal. But this definitely journal on the go. And I like that it's a trifold because I feel like you can wrap up all your stuff and, you know, it's all kind of compact and complete and, you know, contained. So, and there's lots of room to grow in this little journal. Okay, so the last journal I want to show you guys that I'm going to have in my shop. This was, again, another experiment. Oh, I got a string hanging here. There we go. So this was similar to my Inside Out journals in that, if you remember my Inside Out journals, I'm using a really pretty old quilt and I'm putting the cover on the inside. So that was my original thought because this is a feed sack quilt. It's made of all feed sacks. And I was thinking that I was going to make it an Inside Out journal. But the book I wanted to use wasn't going to work as an Inside Out journal because it's a smaller book. It's almost the size of this. It's not a telltale book. It's a different one. It's called the Little Color Classic. I've never seen this type of books. So I couldn't do an Inside Out. So what I did was, instead of the covers on the actual quilt, I did pocket over here, pocket and pocket. And then the book covers are the front and back of the first signature. So I put them in and they are on the inside. It's just not an Inside Out journal. So for this, you're gonna get the exact same setup, the book pages, and there were a lot of book pages in this book. It's probably twice as many as like a Golden Book or a Telltales. Scrapbook paper, ledger paper, and the illustrations in this are really cool because they're not cartoony like, you know, your Golden Books and things like that. They're a little bit different. They're more realistic type of illustration. And there are a lot, like I said, a lot of book pages in this. So in this one, that's a little envelope, that's a pocket, and then here's the other side. There was some handwriting from the original owners. Now, usually I try to erase, you know, anything that's, sometimes I'll leave it and sometimes I won't. It depends on what it is. But I started to erase this. Oh, look at this. This is some stationery. And I decided I wasn't going to erase it. And I'm going to show you why I didn't erase it. It's actually a really cool part of this book. So this is the other piece of that stationery. It's nice and textured. Okay, so check it out. This is some of the original writing in this book. And I just couldn't get rid of it. First of all, the names. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Judy, Luann, Karen. I love that. So I kept that. And then check it out. Now, if you wanted to erase it, you could. I always use like a white eraser, and that seems to do the best. So on the back, this was a makeshift library pocket. So this envelope already was on here, and then they had this little card that was, I'm assuming, like a little library card. And so Louise Gibson was the one that checked this out, and evidently she never turned it back in. So I kept that intact too, because that's just too precious. Flocked paper with pockets. More of the original writing. Just some little fold outs here. That's really pretty. I love the dark paper with the green and white. So this was an extra book page that I had that just didn't make its way into the signatures, so I just tucked it in this pocket here. Little envelope. More cool stationery. So this is an old lunch bag that I turned into a pocket. And so there's an address, some old address paper in this side. And then on this side, this is just an old card that I put a little hexagon cutout. Could be a little frame for some photos. And then there's the last page. And so in the pockets, I have these 6x6 papers that I just did some stitching around, and they help give the journal some rigidity because, like I said, there's no covers on this. I didn't put any book covers on the actual journal cover itself. So these papers help to give the journal a little bit of less floppiness, I guess is what I want to say. And I just used an eclectic mix of laces and needlework, doilies, some fabric scraps. So yeah, this is super squishy. Like there's so much room for you to journal and grow in this. Very tattered and very stringy and just, oh, it just feels so good in your hands. So this is a fabric journal. I have 2 more journals that I'm working on that I plan on having in my shop later this week. And so I'll just kind of give you a little sneak peek of those 2 journals. They came from a quilt that my grandma had made my mom, and my mom's dogs got a hold of it. So this is all cross-stitched done by my grandma. I originally wasn't going to cut this quilt up, and then the more it sat there, the more I was like, no, it needs to do something. It needs to have a purpose. My grandma worked very hard on this, and not just to have it sit in a corner. So I did. I cut it up, and let me show you what I've made from it. So I have 2 journal covers that I have completed. I just haven't filled them yet with the papers. That's why these won't be ready until till the end of this week. But basically what I did was I just took the quilt and I turned it into a journal cover similar to my Inside Out journals. What I did a little differently on this one is because these were not like the feed sack quilt where there was pattern everywhere, I was able to put the book cover on the front because this was just pink fabric and it needed some toning down. So it's not an Inside Out journal, but it's similar to it. So the book cover is on the front, and then it's just got a mishmash of different fabric and trims. And then on the inside, I took the back cover and I split it in half, so you'll get one piece of the back cover in the middle, and the other piece of the back cover will be on the back side. Now, because I split them in half, they're not as rigid. They're gonna be a little more flexible, but that's okay. And it just kind of gives this some substance. This was a piece from one of my grandmas. It might have been my great step grandma. I can't remember. I don't know. I've got a whole stash of stuff from just a bunch of grandmas. So this was some needlework that grandma did, and I just stitched it in as pocket, pocket, tuck spot, and then this will be where the signatures go. And this is going to be a very squishy and a very roomy journal. It'll have 5 signatures in it, just like my inside out journals. There's grandma's cross stitch on the back, and yeah, and it's just got the messy stitches. So this one I'm planning on finishing and getting it in my shop later this week. And then the other one, because I couldn't just do one, I had to do 2. So this is a Rainbow Bright book. And so same thing, vintage sheet, grandma's quilt. This time I went all out. I added some pom-pom trim, and you will see there's lots of strings and stuff hanging. I haven't cleaned this up very well. So I worked the other day. It takes me like a whole day to do. It took me for the birds cover and this one, it was one I worked on the entire morning and one I worked on the entire afternoon. So it takes a lot of time just to get the covers done. But once I have the covers done, then it's pretty you know, easy to put the papers in and stitch it together. The covers were the hard part. So you will see on this cover, you will see the evidence of my stitching. I did not try to cover this up. I did not try to make this neat and tidy. I wanted you to see the work that went into it. I wanted this to be raw. I wanted this to be not perfect. And I know there are some beautiful sewers out there who would probably cringe when they see my messy stitches and they see that I've gone over things 2 and 3 times, but that's me, and that's my stitching, and that's evidence, you know, that I was here and I had to stitch this. And why was I stitching it? I was stitching it to hold 2 things together. And I love that raw foundational part of the sewing. I love to see all the gritty bits that went into the process. There you go. I love to see all the gritty bits that went into the process. So you're going to see my gritty bits here. This had a hole in it, so I just patched it, and this is just some old lace and yeah, stuff like that. This is part of my baby clothes. So then on the inside, here is a vintage curtain, and it'll be pocket. This is where the signatures will go, pocket, pocket, pocket. And then for the inside, the pages for this one, oh, I got plans. I got some really good plans for this. It may not be what you think. I'm gonna do something that I don't normally do, and I'm super, super, super excited about it. So yeah, that's my plan, to work on these the rest of this week and get these in my shop hopefully before next weekend, maybe by Friday or something this week. So yeah, all right guys, so let me summarize. I have 5 journals going into my shop tomorrow, Tuesday, July 3rd at 7 p.m. Central Time, USA, Kansas City, Missouri. And then I have 2 more that I'm going to be working on, and hopefully get those listed in the shop later this week. Guys, thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you're healthy, I hope you're happy, and I hope you have a very creative day. Bye.